There's this thing where some people get really used to strumming with a pick, but then, of course, they drop it, and you know how picks are when you drop them. So then they just end up trying their darndest to play with an imaginary pick. But weirdly, I actually think this turns out to be a relatively decent way to start strumming with your fingers. And today, I want to give you a few ideas about how to do it over the long term, and then some examples of how to integrate it back into your finger stylings. Now, two common little problems that a lot of people have when they're starting to strum with their fingers are that it basically can hurt. And people will say it hurts right here, kind of above their nails. The biggest thing, I bet, is actually the angle you're meeting the strings at. Because if we're approaching them like this, then we're going to drag our skin across the strings. With a pick, we are somewhat closer to the soundboard. But with fingerstyle, we can get more comfortable with being a little further away. We'll start with my usual right hand preparation, our fingers like 5% effort pulling together. And then our M finger is a little taller, so we slightly curl it to make it the same height as the others. And then I just think of all three fingers as being kind of a paddle, or like one unit. Our poor pinky is sort of too short to really help, so he just goes along for the ride. The other one is, people at first tend to feel like they're going like this. When I'm playing sort of normal strokes, I feel my fingers line up more like this. But when I'm going to strum, I slightly adjust the way I stack them to present my little paddle to the strings at a little bit better of an angle. And so when we're doing simple strumming, our thumb can do the upstrokes. Start with just down up, and then spend some time on a few classic strumming patterns. And when it's starting to feel a little more natural, then we're ready to move on. Now, I still like to use my thumb to do bass notes, and we can relatively easily use the fingers back and forth. And to make it a little easier, you can think of just using your index finger and make this little flicking motion. And then I really like the feeling of stability, but also the musical possibilities of keeping the thumb planted on the next string. So if I wanted to strum the first three strings, I could keep my thumb planted on the fourth. And then it's also like a little wrong note stopper. Then here's this awesome little trick I want you to learn. And first let me just show you. I'm going to play bass notes with my thumb and then do some little finger strums in there. But the main thing is look when I put my thumb down for the next note. At first, this is probably going to seem awkward, but when it's more settled in, it's going to make it so easy to super accurately pick out specific bass notes and strum in between. So any of these kind of boom chick rhythms, I think are way easier to play this way instead of the pick finding its way back and forth. To start, let's just try it on our lap or some surface. And we start a tiny little bit in the air above, then we touch our thumb down at the same time as the fingers flick. Your thumb will still be touching after the movement. If we move to our instruments, we can try the same idea. Let's flick approximately the first four strings and place our thumb on the fifth. One thing is, when we do this, it sounds really clean and tends to feel really solid, but it does stop the bass notes, and so if you wanted to, for musical reasons, keep the bass notes ringing, then you just wouldn't do it that way in that case. We are hopefully starting to feel ready to integrate this back into our usual fingerpicking technique. Let's start by doing some PIMA block chords. But we do the little flicky chords on beats 2 and 4, sort of like a snare drum effect. we can get a little more fun and maybe just have the bass note by itself. If you want to further dive into some techniques, check out this playlist, or if you'd like to understand a little more about chords and chord substitutions, check this out.